Back, everyone. Aha, getting used to this. And welcome back. And it's been a great month and a great power, the power of imagination. And usually we have Reverend Sylvie here, but she's not with us today, but she's home. She's feeling better, and we'll have an update very soon for you. She doesn't want any phone calls or anything like that, but she's being well looked after, and she's with us in spirit. So we'd like to welcome Jeanette. And goodness me, what is Jeanette going to tell us about imagination? Thank you, Jeanette. Over to you.
Thank you, Bill. Is that thing going to go away? Yes. Well, my title, Imagine That. I'm sure that you've all, at some point in your life, said those words. Imagine that we could go for a holiday. Imagine that we could do this, we could do that. So let me go on. I want to start with the quote that Bill put in his newsletter this week about imagination. The qualities of this power are the ability to image, envision, dream, and conceptualize. I use my power of visualization to create constructive and inspiring creations as I meditate and tune into what spirit reveals to me. Where there has been seemingly lack of finances and other material burdens, I now use my power of imagination to see, to feel, and affirm all the good I need demonstrated in my life now, not only for myself, but also for those around me. I have the power, through imagination, to take dominion, to bring those things into my life and spread this good news with others. And I went out to Unity's site to see what they were saying in 2021. They said, my imagination brings possibilities to life. So I wanted to share with you some examples of how imagination has worked in my life. So memories from a long way back. I've got this grey hair now. So imagination played a big role in my childhood, as it did with all the kids that I knew. I'm a little unsure about today's kids with their screen time and how much they have time to actually engage with their imagination, but I guess we'll see. But when I was playing as a kid, there were imaginary games with friends. We played families. We played being the best cricket team in the world. Yeah, I know I'm a girl, but we still did it. We played kings and queens and princesses and famous people, and we had a great time. We had imaginary relationships with our dolls and other cuddly toys. We talked to them. I played mum. And there were many other examples of where imagination was so important when I was a kid. But I've got two special experiences I'd like to share with you. And the first one was when I was in grade 2. So I was about 7, I think, at the time. And I'd been in trouble. Nothing new about that. But at this point, I'd had some encounter with the headmistress of our little primary school. And she hadn't given me a good time. So I thought, how would I get back at that? So I used to sit in my desk and I would imagine that I had a whole troop of children and I would have to come to school. Somebody would have to mind my children. And for me, it was the headmistress. So I used to imagine turning up to school every day with a crowd of children with me, and I would park them in her office with her while I went and sat down and did English and arithmetic and whatever else was on the agenda for the day. And then I would collect them at the end of the day and take them home with me. Now, I did this day after day after day. So, I mean, that was a time. Nothing happened out of that, but it didn't. I mean, it did manifest later. I'll come to it. It manifested much later in my life. So then I moved on, and I when I was about 15, and I was working by the time I was 14. I didn't like school, so I left as soon as I could. But I was working in a factory at 15. And if any of you have worked in a factory, you know it's repetitive. And once you've learnt it, it doesn't take a lot of thinking after that. So I would be working away and I would engage in imagining my wedding dress, what I created. It was most beautiful. I made changes every now and again, but it was still white, full, and wonderful. But a wedding doesn't involve, but there was no groom. I didn't know who I was going to marry, but I knew about the dress. But a wedding does have to have a groom. So it came about 5 years later. I did indeed wed the then man of my dreams. We moved on, but that was wonderful at the time. But my grade 2 scenario did manifest much later in my life. And I'll come to that. I had fulfilled another creative project. At 34, having left school at 14, I returned to study for my Year 12 certificate so that I could train in a career that would serve other people once my third child went to school. So I began the training and job as an English and drama teacher. Now, both these subjects engage the imagination and creative facilities. So here it also played out in my life with both myself and encouraging the students to be engaged with their imagination and creativity. During that time, I organised to take a group of Year 12, 11 and 12 students to the Adelaide Arts Festival. I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but it was great and it was the thing to do at the time. However, there were more students than I could lawfully take on a trip as a teacher. I needed to find someone else, another trained teacher, to come with me. And to my surprise, the person who volunteered for the job was the headmistress. Wow. So we set forth for a good time, me and the headmistress, and I think there were about 18 young ladies and boys. It's a co-ed school. But there was another consideration that I needed to deal with. I was engaged in a course at the time that required me to attend on a day that I was on duty in Adelaide. So what was I going to do about this? So I had a consultation with the headmistress, and it was decided that it would be fine for me to fly back to Melbourne, participate in my course, and fly back the next morning. So who was in charge of my students? The headmistress. So my imagining grade 2 of leaving my kids with the headmistress manifested itself. I got back the next morning, all was good, and we went on with our tour. And it took quite a few years, but there it was. Much later in my life, after I had left teaching in schools and completed all the courses I was doing, I set up a program that I decided to start my own seminars for adults rather than teaching secondary students. And I called it the Master Game. And in it, I set out to assist people with bringing their dreams into reality. We'd had some talk about our role on the planet and the world we lived in. I noticed that things haven't changed very much. We are still attempting to bring about a better world. But that was the focus of this seminar that I did. And we were about bringing people's dreams into reality and how they could fulfill those dreams. And it was a great time. But during the very first program I ran, I met a lady, and she, after she'd finished the program, she asked if she could join me in putting them on. And her gift, if you like, was her ability to enroll people. So she became my enrollment partner. So this was just wonderful. But the other part of being with her was she was an artist. She used to draw people's auric fields and things like that. So she introduced me to pastels. This was a brand new beginning for me. I believed I was absolutely backward with drawing. I couldn't draw. I knew it for a fact. I could splash colours on the page, but I never could form images. You know, I couldn't do a face or anything like that. But with her encouragement, I went on and played around with her and did more. And then came a time when I met another friend who introduced me to much deeper meditation than I'd been involved in. And this created a desire to create inspirational pictures for others. So I offered to create a drawing for a young lady in my meditation group. And here is her picture. Rad, can you put that on for me? It's the first one that you can see was my picture for this lovely lady who had since passed on, but she thought it was lovely. And the bright spark on the little dolphin, I think, is the camera light when I photographed them. But I went on and I did more. Another one, Rad? Is there another one? Another slide? Yeah. So that's a sample of the sorts of things that apparently came about. I was amazed that I could do this. So for someone who believed they could not draw, this was just amazing. So what I would say to you is never let your beliefs interfere with your imagination and your ability to create. Step forward and go into it. And I also totally believe that you can do whatever you dream of imagining doing and have proved that I could do it. So it's never too late for you. And I've just started learning the piano, so look out. Whatever will I create out of that? I figured I was old enough, but it's proving challenging. So now I would like to present you with a lovely song about imagination. So if you know the words, sing along. Thank you, Rab.